Today we're going to look at this article. The name of this article is Female Firefighters Defy Old Ideas of Who Can Be an American Hero. So defy kind of means to challenge the ideas of who can be an American hero, and we can infer from this title that a lot of times we don't think of female firefighters as being an American hero. A lot of us may be shocked at the stereotypes that are ingrained in us, and what that means is there are things that we know and understand without knowing and understanding them. We may say, yay, women's rights, a little girl can grow up to be anything. But then when we start looking at quantifiable numbers and statistics, we see that even though we say those things doesn't necessarily mean we really believe them or that we really act on them. So let's take a look at this article. 5 women graduated from New York City's Fire Academy on April 18th, bringing the number of women serving in the Fire Department of New York to 72, the highest in its history. The FDNY's 2018 graduating class also includes the first son to follow his mother into the profession. She was one of the 41 women hired in 1982 after the department lost a gender discrimination lawsuit and was ordered to add qualified women to the force. So we have this word discrimination here. This is a great word to add to your writer's notebook. Under vocabulary, discrimination, the practice of unfairly treating a person or group of people different from other people. So shun is the act of, so we know that this is an action. We know dis is against. Discrimination, the act of treating someone differently. Despite these milestones, women still make up less than 1% of New York's 11,000 firefighters. The city trails Minneapolis, San Francisco, Seattle, and Miami, where in the recent years fire squads have been more than 10% female. The national average hovers around 5%. So when I think of 5%, percent is 100. So 5% would be 5 of 100. So that's 5 women to 95 men. And if you want to make that visual for yourself, grab your M&Ms, Skittles, marbles, pieces of paper, whatever. Cut out 95 or separate 95 all the same, and then put 5 different in there and take a look at it to get that visual representation. That's how many women to men there are as firefighters. Approximately 10,300 women nationwide worked as full-time firefighters in 2016, according to the most recent data available from the Department of Labor. In 1983, there were just 1,700. These women are on the front lines fighting fires, helping victims of natural disasters, and combating terrorism. Now, as I'm modeling this, I changed my copy so it was no longer multiple choice and it was just an open-ended question. I did this because I want to model for you how to think about the question without giving you the answer. The answer is still yours. What caused the fire department of the city of New York to start hiring women? Now, without looking at any of the answer choices, I should go back and find where the passage talks about this. So, fire department of the city of New York started hiring women. So I need to find where it talks about that. Okay, the fire department, the New York Fire Department on 2018 graduating class also included the first son to follow his mother into the profession. She was one of the 41 women hired in 1982 after the department lost a gender discrimination lawsuit and was ordered to add qualified women to the force. So I would think about this here. because this talks about when they started hiring women. And we also have this clue here that's this date, 1982. So what caused the fire department of the city of New York, FDYN, to start hiring women? And your answer's in that paragraph. So then you're going to have to look at the way they answer the questions and match that evidence to one of the answer choices. I interviewed over 100 female firefighters for an academic study of women in traditionally male industries. My research reveals how women are changing firehouse culture and are transforming how Americans see heroism. 2 centuries of service. Women have been putting out fires in the U.S. for 200 years. In 1815, Molly Williams joined New York City's Oceanus Engine Company No. 11. Williams was a black woman enslaved by a wealthy New York merchant who volunteered at the firehouse. Williams would accompany the merchant to the station to cook and clean for the all-white, all-male crew. One evening, the alarm rang at Oceanus No. 11. The men were incapacitated by the flu. Okay. That's another word that I would add to my writer's journal under the vocabulary section. Gives you the definition right there. It's really easy to copy and paste that into your journal and copy and paste the definition into your journal. To make someone or something unable to work. So they were unable to work because of the flu. So Williams grabbed the hand-pumped hose and answered the call alone. Her strength so impressed the men that they offered her a job. In 1926, 50-year-old Emma Vernell became New Jersey's first female firefighter when her husband Harry, a volunteer fireman in the town of Red Bank, died in the line of duty. So I would like to point out that we've got dates here. And if I was taking notes, over here, I would put and then I would see this here, and I'm noticing that they're organizing this chronologically, excuse me. So we can organize our information chronologically. I don't want to do any of those things. Many more women took their husbands' places in Americans' volunteer fire service during World War II. By the mid-1400s, 2 Illinois military fire departments were manned entirely by women. So that was during World War II in the mid-1940s. Now, you guys don't need to do all this. I'm just illustrating to you how I'm thinking about it and how this text is organized. But the profession really opened up to women after the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which made it illegal for employers to discriminate against applicants based on sex, race, nationality, or religion. Okay. Why did many women become firefighters during World War II? Well, we know that World War II is right up here. Many more women took their husbands' places in Americans' volunteer service by World War II. So, if I were to take this and put this in my chart, and this is what the text says, and I'm going to look at my question, why did many women become firefighters? And I'm going to add myself another column here while I'm thinking. Insert column left. And okay. Why did women, okay, many more women took their husbands' places in American volunteer service during World War II. All right, so I can infer that the husbands left for war and the women took their places. That's how this inference chart is supposed to kind of work. I kind of have it backwards though, but I didn't like the way they had it. So here's the question, why did many women become firefighters? Here's the quote from the text that we copied and pasted. Many more women took their husbands' places in Americans' volunteer fire during World War II. And here's my thought, that husbands left for work and the women took their places. Now, I know there's another question, so I'm going to add another row. Insert row below. All right, strong, brave, and invisible. Despite this history, I still hear claims that affirmative action for female firefighters is diluting standards and putting communities at risk. What does this mean? Well, let's look at affirmative action. They don't define it as a phrase. Affirmative action is when we have said we want to make sure that minorities and women and people of different religions are able to have jobs. Some people don't think that's fair. And they're saying diluting standards. Well, when you dilute something, you add more water to it and you make less of what's there. So if we're diluting a standard, we're lowering the standards. And that's putting the communities at risk. That's what that means. Even my liberal colleagues have asked me whether women can really carry an unconscious victim out of a fire while wearing 100 pounds of gear. So there's an inference to be made here. And the inference is, if they're questioning if women can really carry an unconscious victim, the inference is that women may not be strong enough to carry out a victim while wearing all the gear. The answer is yes. In 2008, almost 70% of all aspiring female firefighters passed the National Candidate Physical Abilities Test, which tests for endurance, strength, and cardiovascular health. The same year, 75% of male applicants passed. Female success rates rise when departments offer specialized preparation programs for women to work out together, get hands-on experience with firefighting equipment, and follow individualized strength training routines. Critics have suggested to me there aren't more female firefighters because women are not interested in such a dangerous and dirty job. Yet women are much better represented in fields that require a comparable level of strength and stamina, including drywall installation, logging, and welding, though they remain minorities. Women have also made more inroads into other historically male-dominated careers like aerospace engineering and medicine. Today, some 150 years after the first American woman entered medical school in 1911, almost 35% of doctors are women. And again, that means that 65% are men. So well over half of doctors are men. Fear of change. So why are just 5% of firefighters female? Based on research on gender integration in the U.S. military, I believe the main obstacle facing women in firefighting is traditional culture. Like soldiers, firefighters are viewed as proud warriors working on dangerous front lines. That image comes with powerful stereotypes about who's best suited to do the work. Female soldiers and firefighters both challenge a cultural standard that men are heroes and women are onlookers or even victims. The military first added women to its ranks in 1948. So here we have another date that we could put into our timeline if we wanted to. In December 2015, Secretary of Defense Ash Carter lifted the ban on women in combat roles, as long as they qualify and meet the standards, despite opposition from the Marines. Today, women still account for just 15% of active military personnel. Firefighting, too, is a traditional field. Over the past decade, numerous departments have been found guilty of discriminating against applicants of color and ordered to retool interest testing that had disparate impact based on race. Women, in some ways, even more disruptive newcomers to firefighting because they entirely upend societal gender norms. So here, this question is, why is the number of female firefighters in America grown so slowly over the years? So we need to look for things that have kind of kept them from being firefighters. Okay, so let's go back and look for some evidence. Well, here we have fear of change. This whole thing is going to talk about why people are afraid of changing. The author says right here, I believe the main obstacle facing women in firefighting is traditional culture. So there's one quote. Then we have firefighters are viewed as proud warriors. And how are women looked at in relation to that? And women are onlookers, even victims. And it upends societal gender norms. Now, if we look even further up, we've got that people that they're not interested in such a dirty job. And then we have whether women can really carry an unconscious victim. So are they strong enough? So and this came first, so I'm going to kind of come back here and put it at the beginning because that's just how I like to organize my thinking. I might not have done it in every spot, but computers make it really easy to put things in order. So these are all of the places, not all, but most of the places in the text where it answers why is the number of female firefighters in America grown so slowly over the years. And here I can say firefighters are seen as warriors and women as onlookers. Women may think they are not strong enough, and some people say the job is too dirty. Okay, so that kind of sums all of that up. And I can take all of that textual evidence and say, the number of female firefighters has grown so slowly because. All right. Because I always tell you guys to answer and complete sentences, and you need to do that in your head. When we do that in our head, a lot of times our brain just automatically fills in the gaps for us because we know the information. We've tricked ourselves into believing that we don't know the information. So a lot of times if we start to restate the question when we're thinking to ourselves or talking out loud or writing the answer down, our brain starts to plug in that information for us. All right, so we were on question 4. And why has the number of female firefighters in America grown so slowly over the years? And we found a bunch of reasons why it's grown so slowly, and then we summarize those reasons in a little paragraph. I wonder if I can make that any smaller. No, I can't. All right, workplace harassment. Interviewees have told me they face severe harassment on the job, and this was even shocking to me. One found her oxygen tank drained. I want everyone to stop and think about that for a minute. If you're a firefighter and you're running into fires and you don't have any oxygen in your tank, that is almost beyond harassment. Because if she were to run in a fire with an empty tank, we can all infer what the consequences would be and what kind of charges the firemen in her station would face. Another confided that her male colleagues are so hostile she fears they'll leave her alone in a fire. Female firefighters also contend with ill-fitting gear. The long fingers of male gloves affect their grip, they report. Boots and coats are too large. Oversized breathing masks push their loose helmets forward, blocking their vision during fires. I want to pause here. The easy answer to that is for equipment to be designed in smaller sizes. But because of economics and supply and demand, there's so few female firefighters that there's not a lot of incentive for companies to design and make equipment that are going to fit female firefighters correctly, even though it's extremely important. So the more female firefighters, the higher the demand for equipment that fits right, the more businesses are going to design equipment to fit them. Station houses often lack private spaces for women, including bathrooms, changing areas, and dormitories. In 2016, 34 years after women joined New York's fire department, the city boasted that all of its 2014 active firehouses finally had gender-separate facilities. For 3 decades, some of New York's bravest women went to the bathroom in neighborhood diners. Many others just went ahead and used the men's room. Now, I love here, the author's sounding a little sassy. The city boasted that its firehouses had gender-separate facilities. And then they say for 3 decades, some of New York's bravest went to the bathroom in neighborhood diners. So, yay, we've got this great achievement. But hey, it's 2016. It's taken 34 years to get here. Why did it take so long? Women winning. Female firefighters are succeeding anyway. Several hundred have risen to the level of lieutenant or captain. Another 150 hold the highest rank, fire chief. That includes Chief Joanne Hayes White, whose historic 2004 hiring made San Francisco the world's largest urban fire department led by a woman. Meanwhile, these women are transforming how Americans imagine heroism. One Wisconsin firefighter said people are surprised when her all-female crew pulls up to a blaze, but she told me no one cares if you're a woman when their house is on fire. A woman in San Francisco said she intentionally stands outside the station during downtime so that neighborhood children realize Black women can be firefighters. You have to see it to be it, she said. Now I'm going to pause for a minute and I'm going to think. I've seen female firefighters. I know we have one here in Havelock because when I taught second grade and the firefighters would come and put on their thing for the second graders, there was a female. But honestly, in all reality, this Black women can be firefighters. I have seen Black women firefighters on TV. I do not know that I've seen one in person. So that's a really big thing to step back and think about. You have to see it to be it, she said. What hurdles have female firefighters used to overcome in order to serve their communities? Use several specific pieces of evidence and examples from the text to support your answers. So I don't need this whole question to go on my chart. I just need this part. And again, I'm just going to add another row, and this is for my thinking. I'm going to add this question here. What hurdles? So when we think of hurdles, I think of people jumping hurdles. And I love this image right here. Okay, see these people jumping over hurdles? So what hurdles have female firefighters had to overcome? So what have they literally had to jump over? Well, first of all, we have workplace harassment. I mean, that's huge. So we have workplace harassment. I have to look at how to spell harassment. Okay, then we have ill-fitting gear. So ill-fitting gear means it doesn't look right, or it doesn't work right. And because I am not doing whole sentences, I'm not putting quotation marks around it. This is more like a bulleted list. Lack of private spaces for women. So these are three nice solid reasons that things they've had to overcome. And I would write my answer out here and I would start with restating my questions. And I would start with this, copy, paste, and I would add the hurdles female firefighters have had to overcome in order to serve their communities are. And I would fill it in. And that would be an answer that would get 100 points. Now, or full credit. I want to zoom this out. I want us to take a look at our filled out chart. These are questions, all except for the first one. These are quotes from the text that answer the question, even before I've looked at the multiple choice. Then this is my thinking over here. So if I wanted to label the top of my chart, I would put question, quote, well, let's put summary or thought. Okay? This is the evidence, this is the citing, these are the quotes that support the answers. And this was just our thinking while we were reading. All right, guys, thank you for hanging out and listening to this. This is extra help. It was not required, but I bet you that if you went through this and walked through this with me, you're going to get 100 on this. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Can't wait to see you.